I remember when she made me drink a ton of water. I didn't know why until she took me into the bathroom and went on her knees and said, "Okay, Bubba, put it on me. Give me the golden shower." Like, what was this girl asking me to do? Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome to another really embarrassing story. So today's story all takes place back in my high school years, and this was actually my grade 12 year. So my grade 12 year, I was actually graduating and getting out of high school. And honestly, I was really excited too, because I'm not gonna lie to you, school is probably the worst years of my life. Even though it may sound really entertaining throughout this channel of me telling all these insane stories, I won't lie, I never really enjoyed high school. Part of me wishes nowadays, since I'm older now, is that I wish I actually paid attention more in school and actually focus on an actual future and actually go to college. But I mean, thanks to you guys made my future more fun with doing these stories. But going on with this story, I remember one time in my grade 12 year, I was just walking around the school, just hanging out with some of my friends, and out of nowhere, I ended up seeing a girl that not a lot of guys really talk to. I didn't know why until I looked over at one of my friends and asked him, "Yo, bro, I'm just curious. Why does no one talk to that girl? Like, for real, in the beginning of the school year, she was all popular. Now she's just like, what, weird? Oh, bro, you didn't hear? Apparently she's like into like some really weird stuff, bro. Trust me, you don't want to talk to her." Well, I mean, she's not ugly. How bad could it be? I remember my friends ended up shrugging their shoulders because they didn't know why this girl was known to be so weird. So what I decided to do is actually walk up to her. I remember I walked up to her straight up and I said, "Hey, like, how's it going? I'm Bubba." "Oh, hey, Bubba. Yeah, I know about you. Some of the girls talk about you in class." "Oh, what did they say? Hopefully good things." "Well, I mean, other than, you being really good at Devil's Tango, they say some pretty weird stuff about you." "Okay, well, that sucks. But other than that, I mean, like, you down to like maybe hang out?" "Actually, you know what? You might be the perfect guy the more I think about it." When she said this, I did not know what she was talking about, but she ended up giving me her phone and we ended up exchanging social medias. And while one thing led to another, I'm not gonna lie, I thought I was locked in. But right after this girl walks away, one of the guys that I used to play rugby with ended up walking up to me saying, "Yo, Bubba, what are you doing with that girl, bro?" I don't know, just, decided to talk to her. "Why? What's up?" "Bro, you do know that's like the weird girl, right? Like, she's major weird." "Yeah, no, I heard. I don't know why though. Do you know?" Well, no, I don't know, but like, all I'm saying is, bro, is like, it's your funeral." And he walked away. At this point, obviously something was really off with this girl. But me, you gotta understand, at this time in my life, I did a lot of the Devil's Tango. So I thought I was prepared for anything. My confidence boost was like to the max. So instantly right at that moment, I remember I ended up heading to my next class. And as I was in my next class, I remember I ended up getting a text message on my phone. It was from the girl that I just talked to. And she was like telling me about like, life and stuff and how she had a pretty hard childhood. And, she started basically trauma dumping me. And girls do this a lot for some reason. They think like right away when they meet a new person in their life, they think trauma dumping is probably the smartest thing to do. When in reality, girls, if you're watching this, it's really a turn off. But obviously I was being nice about it and I was listening in on everything. And then one thing led to another. I remember she ended up saying, "Oh, so like after school, what do you want to do?" "Oh, I was thinking of maybe like, hanging out, just chilling." "Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking we go back to my place." I mean, we can, but like, don't you like want to like hang out first?" "I mean, yeah, we can. I'm down." Now, the reason I didn't instantly decide to go to her place was because obviously I wanted to actually get to know this girl to make sure I wasn't going into some crazy stuff. Because even though I was super confident in myself, obviously I wanted to know why everyone thought she was so weird. So one thing led to another. I remember after school came around and me and her, we ended up meeting up in front of the school. We got in my car and I started driving to the mall. As I was driving to the mall though, I remember she started getting really touchy with me and started putting her hand on my thigh and stuff and basically was signaling that she was really in the mood. I didn't know why, but obviously I was like, kind of just telling her to calm down and stuff because I get it. I was attractive back in high school, but I don't think I was that attractive. But once we got to the mall, I remember me and her, we started walking around. I started basically telling her about myself this time. And well, I'm not gonna lie, we got along pretty well. We both realized that we both enjoyed doing the Devil's Tango. But other than that, we both enjoyed the same foods and stuff. And I remember as we were walking through the mall, out of nowhere, she ended up seeing this bubble tea place. Now, I like bubble tea. I think bubble tea is a really good drink. And I remember I ended up going up to the bubble tea place and ordering a drink. And she did the same thing as well, except the one thing that was really odd is that after when she got her drink into her hand, me and her started walking around and I started to realize that this girl was not drinking her bubble tea. I looked at her and said, "Oh, are you like not thirsty? Do you not want it anymore?" "Oh, yeah, I'm actually not that thirsty. Here, you want to drink it?" Yeah, sure, I'll drink it." So I remember after I finished mine, I ended up drinking hers, but halfway through drinking hers, I remember I wasn't really feeling it anymore because I felt like I had too many bubbles or bobas, I guess it's called. And basically I was planning on throwing it away. But as I was about to throw it away, she looks at me and says, "Bubba, are you seriously gonna waste that? There's no way. I mean, it's not that much left. Bubba, just drink it all. Come on, you're gonna need it for later." "I'm gonna need What? What are you talking about? At this point, she went silent and started giggling, but I did not know what she meant when she said that, and it started to make me worry. Was this the weird thing that everyone was talking about? Well, later on, you guys will figure out what it was, because I remember after we finished hanging out at the mall, me and her, we went back to the parking lot and got in my car. And when I got inside my car, I remember I was just basically planning on just driving her back to her place and dropping her off, but she had other plans in mind, because I remember she looked at me and said, "Oh, Bubba, I was just wondering, want to like actually head back to my place?" Yeah, okay, sure. You know what? We'll go back to your place. And I remember we ended up driving back to her place. I parked the car, and I remember once I walked through her house doors, I instantly realized I had to go to the bathroom. So I look at her and say, "Oh, so I was just wondering, where's your bathroom?" "Oh, don't worry, you're not gonna need it right now. We can use it later." "No, but I need to go to the bathroom now." "Oh, Bubba, trust me, you're gonna need it for later." "What do you mean I'm gonna need it for later? What are you asking me to do? Do a urine test?" At this point, I didn't know what this girl was talking about, nor what she needed. And then one thing led to another. I remember I ended up going into her kitchen with her, and then she pulled out like 4 different water bottles, and I looked at her saying, "Oh, are you thirsty?" "Oh no, this is for you. Don't worry about it." And then she ended up taking me into her bedroom with the water bottles that she had in her hand, and one thing led to another. She put them all on the nightstand. At this point, I was questioning what was going on, but then right as I was questioning everything, she ended up hopping onto me and started making out with me on her bed. So at this point, I'm weirded out, but at the same time, I started making out with this girl, but I still had to go to the bathroom. So I remember I look at this girl once again, and I look at her in the eyes and said, "Yo, listen, I need to go to the bathroom. I'm gonna be for real with you here." "Oh, okay, well, you know what? Here, follow me." At this moment, me and her, we ended up going to the bathroom. She showed me where it was, but right as I go in, she comes in right behind me. She comes in with me, and she looks at me and says, "Okay, I'm ready for this." She ended up going on her knees, and she took off everything, and she said, "Okay, Bubba, give it to me." And at that point, I'm like, what do you mean give it to you? At this point, she was basically asking me to urinate on her, or as people would say, do a golden shower. For some reason, this is actually a thing that people are into. It's really gross. In my opinion, don't do this, okay? It's disgusting. So I look at this girl and I think she is crazy. I'm starting to think, whoa, okay, don't get me wrong, you're hot, but this is freaky. And at that moment, everything clicked, because I started to understand what everyone was talking about when they said this girl was a weirdo, bro. So that moment, I remember I was really weirded out, and I didn't pull out my eggplant, nothing. I just looked at her and said, "Okay, listen, there's a lot of things I would do with a woman during the devil's tango, but this is the one thing that I will not do." Okay, like, I am not crazy. She looks at me and gets up and says, "Wait, you think I'm crazy? Are you kidding me? Who do you think you are right now?" Okay, like, I get it, you do a lot of the devil's tango, but you are just not him. Okay, so you know what, maybe you should just leave. Honestly, you know, that's probably not a bad idea. She ended up grabbing me by the wrist and actually taking me to her front door and actually basically kicked me out. And even though I was really hurt by it, I remember I got so upset to the point where I ended up going to her front lawn and actually urinated on her front lawn. If anything, I'd rather feed the grass than feed her. I don't know. Honestly, I don't want to say anymore because, well, I don't want this video to get demonetized, but one thing's for sure, that day I started to realize that there are definitely some weirdos out there. Okay, now high school can be a really scary place. And by this, I don't mean like a horror movie, but in ways, let's just say anxiety is the most built up in high school. If you don't believe me and you guys are still in middle school or elementary school, trust me, when high school comes around, it will bite you in the peach. Because I remember around my first week of high school in my grade 9 year, I was one of those kids that got super anxious and super nervous right away. At this moment in time, I had no confidence whatsoever, and I had like this like pubic stash on my face that was the most disgusting thing ever that made girls not want to look at me whatsoever. But my first week of high school specifically was one that I really wanted to make sure was iconic. And what I mean by iconic is I mean that I did not want to look like one of the weird kids that basically people would look down upon. If anything, I believe that in high school there is a popularity chain that needs to be followed, and the more popular and well known you are, the better your school year will be. So me knowing this and going into my high school years thinking that it was like the high school movies, I decided to go in there wearing the most casual but yet up-to-date outfit, and also on top of that, I made sure that everything was planned out accordingly. I remember to make sure that I, walked with my head up and basically, seemed normal and seemed not super anxious and scared. I know many of you guys are like, "Oh, Bubba, bro, it's just your first year of high school. Like, it's not even that scary, dude." Trust me, bro, it is scary. Because you gotta understand me, I was a gamer growing up. So being in my room in a closed space, only talking to people online and calling them every racial slur ever made was like the most I could do back when I was in grade 9. But now getting into high school and being able to see people face to face and see them in the real world, it became a lot more, I guess, scary. Anyways, I remember my first week was was really awkward because the first day, obviously, I had no idea where anything was. I remember I kept getting lost. I walked into the wrong homeroom, and getting used to the school was one of the hardest parts. But me being who I was, walking up to someone and asking for help was something I never liked doing. I could never get myself to walk up to someone and be like, hey, can you help me out with this? It would have been more like, oh, there's a person there. Okay, wait, is he going inside the classroom? Okay, I think he is. Okay, so if he's going inside that classroom, does that mean he's in my class? Wait, he looks like a grade 12 though. I'm only in grade 9. I don't know if I should go in there. I remember I would always have these like in-head conversations as if I was like going psychotic. I was schizo in my first week of high school. Anyways, it got to the point where I remember I took a photo of the school map that was like put on the walls for like fire escapes, and I basically kind of like started studying that map to make sure that not only did I knew the way to escape out of the high school if I got super embarrassed, but also made sure that I also, you know, studied what classrooms were where, just to make sure that I didn't seem like a lost boy in the woods. But I think where it got really worse when it was lunchtime. Now, I want to say lunchtime was one of the hardest things for me because the amount of anxiety I would get at lunchtime was insane, to the point where I remember my first time ever having lunch in high school. I ended up going to the school cafeteria, picking up my lunch tray, and, you know, getting the food that was there. Now, don't get me wrong, it was super cool to have a cafeteria experience, but the worst part was that after I'm holding this tray full of food, I'm walking towards, like, you know, the main area where everyone sits, and I realized that everyone still had their friends from back in middle school. As for me, well, my middle school years were not the greatest, and to be fair, I went to a different middle school where none of the students there went to this high school specifically. So I'm just kind of like, you know, walking around in the cafeteria, pretending I'm sitting next to someone, even though I never ended up going to actually go and sit there. I seemed like a really weird person, and it got to the point where I noticed that a lot of girls were staring at me, and I even remember one girl that seemed like I was alone and wanted to be a nice person ended up looking at me saying, oh, if you want to sit here, you can. You don't have to keep walking around the cafeteria. Oh, nah, it's cool. I got friends I'm gonna go sit with. I said that in the most obnoxious way, and she looks at me and she's like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. And where did I end up? Well, I didn't actually go sit with anybody because I lied to her. So I ended up actually going straight out of the cafeteria with this tray of food, and I started walking around the school with my plate full of food, not knowing where to sit. It got to the point where I kept walking and walking and walking, and I walked all the way around the school, and I did an entire lap. Yeah, I walked throughout the entire school. I was hoping that there was like an empty classroom or just, you know, somewhere I can go and sit real quick, finish my food, and go to my next class. But I remember the time for lunch started like going down and down, and I even made sure that I had a timer on my phone to know when lunch was supposed to end. And me, I remember I got super like anxious because I didn't eat my lunch yet, and there was only like 5 minutes left of lunch. Lunchtime was only half an hour in our school. I don't know what it is for everyone else. Comment down below. But there was 5 minutes left, and I ended up going to the one place where I decided it was best for me to eat with total privacy. No one was gonna bug me, and, you know, I could eat in peace and also let it go, I guess, at the same time. If you guys guessed it, yeah, I went to the school bathroom. I went inside a bathroom, the first one I saw, and I walked in there, I sat in there, and I was like, wow, the school bathrooms are actually pretty clean. I was expecting it to be, you know, disgusting and gross. But when I went in there, one thing I found really odd was that there was no urinals. And if you guys don't know, you guys probably guessed it, I went inside the girls' bathroom. Now, at this time, I didn't know this, but I went and sat inside, you know, one of the bathroom stalls, and I sat down on the toilet. I had my lunch tray on my lap, and I decided to eat. I was eating my sandwich and mac and cheese that they gave that day, and as I'm munching this down like there's no tomorrow, I end up hearing some girls enter the school bathroom. Now, this moment, I'm like, wait, is that a girl? And I start panicking inside because I'm like, wait, what's a girl doing in the guy's bathroom? But then I realized there was no urinals in this bathroom. Dude, I'm in the girls' bathroom. At this moment, I'm like, nah, there's no way. Like, there's no way I'm in the girls' bathroom. So without making any noise and making sure that I was basically not breathing and also lifting my feet up so that if a girl looks under the bathroom stall, they would see nothing and not my shoes. So I'm sitting there kind of like in a weird crouch position on the toilet seat, and I'm like looking on Find My iPhone app, which basically is an app where, like, you know, it shows you where you are in the world. And I zoom into my school, and I look at the school map that I also took a photo of, and I noticed that I was 100% most definitely in the girls' bathroom. Honestly, for it being my first day, I gotta say it was definitely really weird, but you know, I basically finished eating really quietly, and I sat in that bathroom praying that none of the girls ended up going inside. Now, you guys are probably wondering, oh, just wait for the bathroom to clear up and you can just, you know, get straight out of there. But you gotta understand, girls, for some reason, they have two rules. When they have to go, they have to go. Two, girls, for some reason, like to go in pairs when they go to the bathroom. So when they go to the bathroom together, not only do they take a dump or a, you know, a waz, they end up actually staying in there having full-on conversations about life, boys, and basically all the drama that happens in the school. I want to say the most surprising part was how much drama ends up actually happening in the first week of school, because no joke, these girls know more about, you know, what was going on in the school than the own news knowing about my city. Like, it was actually super bizarre, and it got to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, as I was like, you know, eating and basically enjoying my lunch still in the school bathroom, I didn't even consider putting on my headphones and watching a show. I ended up just listening to their drama that was going on. And dude, not gonna lie, there was a guy named Kyle at my school. Dude, that guy got a lot of girls, which, to be fair, I ended up doing the same thing later in the school year, but not the point. Going on, I remember every time a girl ended up leaving the bathroom, or a pair of girls ended up leaving the bathroom, I would always like kind of like look under the stall to see if it was clear. But every time I would literally slide the unlocking system on the school bathroom stall, randomly another person would come in. So I would close it back up, sit on the toilet, curl up in my position, and just sit there like a weirdo. Dude, I felt super creepy at this time. And I'm not gonna lie, I was praying nonstop to make sure that no girls were going inside the stall. But then an issue came around, and that was that I missed a class. Yeah, I ended up skipping a class because, well, I couldn't leave the bathroom without getting caught. And that wasn't even the worst part, because I remember my mom ended up calling me. Luckily, my phone was on silent. Thank goodness it was. But when I felt my phone vibrating, I answered it really quietly saying, "What is it, Mom? What's going on?" "Bubba, where are you? Why aren't you at school?" I'm at school right now. I'm just in the middle of something, okay? I can't talk right now." "Bubba, are you in class?" Yeah, I'm in class, Mom. I'm in class." "No, you're not. Why are you lying to me? You skipping class? I got a phone call from your teacher." No, Mom. No, Mom. It's a mistake. Just, I gotta go." I ended up hanging up on my mom, and it got really bad because my mom ended up spam texting me wondering what in the world was going on. Now, at this moment, I'm still panicking inside my heart, and my heart was racing 100 miles per hour because I didn't know what to say, and knowing that the situation was just getting worse and worse did not help whatsoever. If anything, I remember I saw a bathroom like vent above, like, you know, the school bathroom, and I was debating on actually trying to crawl up the bathroom stalls and escape through there. And sadly enough, I didn't know the school, you know, blueprints that well, other than the ones that were given from the fire escape, you know, picture. So I really couldn't do much there. But going on, it got to a point where finally, the one time where I was able to leave the bathroom was literally like almost during halfway through my next class that I was supposed to go to. So what I decided to do was basically go crawl under the bathroom stall. I went to the one closest to the door, and when I crawled there, I remember right as a girl walked out, I sprinted out of there. I remember I sprinted so fast out of there to the point where I thought I got away clean, until right as I walk into my next class, halfway through it, the teacher looks at me saying, "Where were you? Why, were you late or something? What's going on? Did you get lost?" I didn't want to say I got locked in the bathroom, so I ended up saying I was in the middle of a really important meeting. "Bubba, you're a high schooler, not a businessman." Right. I'm just gonna sit here. I ended up sitting in the back of the classroom, but then right as I sit down and pull out my books for this class, I ended up hearing my name come up on the announcement saying, "Bubba, can you please come to the office? Thank you." Right as I thought my school day couldn't get any worse, I remember I ended up going to the principal's office, and when I was there, I ended up seeing my mother. And let's just say, explaining the entire reason why I skipped the first day of school in one of my classes, I should say, was the weirdest and most awkward conversation ever. Even my principal ended up showing me footage of me running out of the school bathroom, or the girls' bathroom, I should say. And yeah, he ended up believing me because he thought my whole story was baloney. I remember when I was dancing with this girl during the winter dance, I looked at her and said, "Yo, so like, are we still, you know, friends with benefits?" And that's when this girl stopped dancing with me, grabbed me by my hand, and said, "Follow me." And that's when me and her, we went to the school bathroom and did something extremely illegal. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another embarrassing but crazy story. Now, this story starts off all back when I was in grade 10. And my grade 10 year, I was the biggest player known to man. No joke, I would do whatever walked, and even, I guess, not walked, according to my other videos on this channel. But that's not the point. I remember during the school year, it became December, and December was like one of the biggest times during the school year where everyone would be talking about the holidays and all the crazy events that were gonna come up. And one of the events that was so important to a lot of people in my school for some reason was the winter dance. Now me, I didn't really care about the winter dance since the year before that, I already like, you know, made it a big deal for myself. So knowing that I was already in my second year in high school and the winter dance was coming up again, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really care much for it. At this time, I was more focused on pulling girls than actually enjoying the winter dance. But I remember one day I was walking down the school hallway with one of the girls that I would call my friends with benefits. If you guys don't know what that is, basically it was a girl that I would do the Devil's Tango with, but she would only just be my friend. We weren't dating and there were no strings attached whatsoever. If anything, a better word for this would be sneaky link. But going on with the story, I remember as me and her were walking down the hallway, she looked over at me and said, "Oh, so Bubba, you excited for like the winter dance this year?" I guess not really, to be honest. I could care less this year. Wait, what do you mean? Well, I don't know. Like, I don't see a point. Like, I don't see what the big deal is. Well, obviously, like, you know, to like go to the dance and, you know, celebrate, have a good time with like your fellow classmates. Like, it's a huge deal. I knew at this moment that this girl really had strong emotions towards going to the winter dance, but to be fair, a lot of girls in my school were. Because for girls in my school, the winter dance was like a big deal and sort of treated it as if it was prom. Now, my opinion, prom's a big deal, okay? Prom is actually a really big deal when it comes to high school life, but the winter dance, like, really? Like, doesn't seem that important. Knowing that you're doing it for 4 years straight compared to prom where you're doing it for exactly 1 year and that's your grad year, you gotta understand there's a major difference. But a lot of girls in my school didn't, and they saw it as practice for guys to ask them out the best way possible so that when it came to the years of prom, they would have the biggest questioning of going to prom ever. But me, like I said, I didn't care. And that's when I ended up telling her, honestly, I think I might just not even go. Wait, what? Are you serious, Bubba? Well, yeah, I don't really see a point, like I said earlier. Bubba, you do realize that the winter dance is a big deal for me, right? Well, yeah, I can tell it's a big deal for you, but I just don't see a point. You know what? I'm done with this conversation. At that moment, she ended up basically walking away from me, and at that time, I couldn't care less and continued on with my day. And when after school finally came around, I was walking down the hallway to go get my books from my locker to bring home. And as I was walking that direction, I ended up seeing a bunch of people in a crowd just watching someone getting asked to the winter formal. Now, this was a really big deal for everyone to watch, and I remember so many people were whipping out their phones and everything. And that's when the girl that was my friends with benefits ended up coming up behind me. She came up behind me and said, "Oh, is someone getting asked? No, wait, who is it? I'm so curious." And basically talking like a really perky girl voice as if this was like a reality TV show. But a lot of people started freaking out and being really happy that the girl in the hallway got asked out by one of the guys. And that's when she looked at me and said, "See, Baba, don't you see how important it is for someone?" Not really. It's just asking someone out just in a really overdramatic way. Are you joking? No, not really. And that's when she once again just walks away upset. Now, at that moment, I kind of like thought in my head that maybe she wanted me to ask her, but I wasn't too sure because once again, she was only my friends with benefits and no strings attached. That's like the golden rule. So I decided to basically kind of just, you know, shrug it off and pretend nothing was going on between me and her. And that day when I got home, I remember I was laying in bed and I was just kind of vibing, doing my own thing. And then I ended up for some reason randomly getting bricked. Now, this was normal as a, you know, high schooler. You get bricked at random moments in time. And me, I thought, you know what? Why not hit up my sneaky link that would always be ready and on standby for me to go do the Devil's Tango? And when I shot her a text message, she did not reply. She was straight up ignoring me and leaving me on red. Now, I wasn't sure why she was upset at me. And to be honest, I was like, wait, what? Why isn't she answering? She usually does. And at that day, I actually had to go on the Devil's Hub to take care of my business. Obviously, it was super annoying because I don't like going on the Devil's Hub. But I mean, it is what it is. The next day, I remember I ended up going to school and I ended up going to my locker and I saw her nearby and that's when I walked up to her. I walked up to her saying, "Hey, like, are we good? Like, what's wrong? Like, you didn't answer me last night. You just left me on red." Honestly, is that all I'm good for, Bubba? Like, do you not see anything else? Like, you do realize friends with benefits also mean friends. The friends part. Yeah, no, I get that, but like, what's your deal? Bubba, you do realize that going to this winter formal is important to me, right? Yeah, I understand. So you know what? If you're not even willing to do your friendship part of taking me to winter formal, then honestly, I'm done being friends with benefits with you. At that moment, I just stood in place confused on all this and she just walks away. And that's when my mind started boggling because like, come on, like friends with benefits, no strings attached. Like, wouldn't me asking her to winter formal be also, you know, adding strings? To be honest, I don't really know. Comment down below what you guys think, but honestly, I wasn't really sure at the time. But I remember throughout the school day, I started to really think to myself thinking, honestly, like if she just wants me to ask her out, I could just do it. Like at least gives me a date to go to winter formal and might as well show up because most of my friends are going. So sure, you know what? I'll just ask her. And that's when I planned to basically ask this girl my sneaky link to the winter formal. I remember I ended up going to the mall at lunchtime and actually picking up some spray paint that you could put on your car car and easily wash off. And that's when I went to my car and I drew on there the question of me asking her to winter formal. Since she wanted it to be a big deal, I made sure it was a big deal because it means a lot when she was a sneaky link, which sounds insane because it's not like she was my girlfriend or anything, but still, I made it seem like she was going to be a big deal. I basically made it a bigger gesture than it already should have been. And I remember after school finally came around, I parked my car in front of the school, and that's when I texted her saying, yo, I was wondering, can you just meet me in front of the school real quick? I need to talk to you. It's really important. And that's when she texted me back saying, oh, fine, I'm coming. And when the bell rang, a lot of kids started to come out of the school and saw me in front of my car with this question while I was sitting on my car. And a lot of people started pulling out their phones. And finally, when this sneaky link ended up finally coming outside of the school, she saw me, ran up to me, and gave me the biggest hug. We didn't kiss or anything because obviously sneaky links, well, you have to be sneaky with it. So we didn't make it seem like we were in a relationship already or anything, even though everyone filmed me and basically became talk of the school for like a while. But finally, the day when winter formal finally came up, I ended up picking her up with my car, and you know, we did the whole traditional picking her up and meeting her parents and all that crazy stuff, which her parents already knew me, but they thought I was just some guy that would help her with homework, even though the only homework I was doing was sticking my eggplant in her. Sorry, way out of topic, but you know what I mean. And well, one thing led to another. We ended up getting inside my car, going to the school, and we went and enjoyed our winter formal. Now, winter formal goes the same way as usual. It's just people dancing, having fun, listening to old kids bop music that really sucks because half of the music nowadays have swear words in it. And well, in winter formal and even prom, they censor every single word. So half of the time the music would just have gaps in it throughout the lyrics, and it was really annoying. But then I remember a slow dance came on, and me and my sneaky link, we ended up starting to slow dance beside each other. And that's when I saw the smile on her face, and I whispered in her ear saying, so does this mean we're still, you know, friends with benefits? And that's when she pulls away from me and she grabs me by my hand and drags me all the way to the woman's bathroom, brings me inside, goes inside a stall, and me and her start making out, and we end up doing the devil's tango in the bathroom. Yeah, I know, literally insane and super out of the blue, but at the same time, it gave me my answer that me and this girl were still friends with benefits. And I will say this, it didn't last long after the winter formal because 2 weeks later, she ended up getting a boyfriend and terminating her friends with benefits contract. But what I will say was that, you know, at least I had a good winter formal. Okay, so I was just in the shower beating my eggplant, and honestly, one thing I realized is that when I need to do it, I end up doing it. I know it sounds kind of insane, but ever since growing up and ever since my first time ever beating my eggplant, I realized that I've been doing it a lot more than I expected. Now, before anyone says anything, I know that's a little bit TMI, but you gotta understand, like, I'm a dude at the end of the day. And today's story is about when I did it in the school bathroom, and it was the biggest mistake of my life. It all starts off back when I was in high school, and this was actually my grade 10 year. Now, my grade 10 year, I had basically somewhat popularity. I ended up shaving my pubic stache that was on my face, and I ended up actually being able to pull more girls than I actually expected. Like, for example, I remember one time I ended up literally just walking up to a girl, and all I said was hello, and she said, oh, I'm about to actually leave, but here's my Snapchat. Like, she just ended up giving me her snap and number from just saying hi. I'm not gonna lie, I thought me shaving my, you know, weird, gross mustache that I had back then and actually getting a proper hairstyle really helped out, because back when I was younger, I looked like this, so you know, it definitely didn't help out. But going on with the story, I remember one time I was literally just walking into my school, and this was like one of those like normal days where I thought, you know what, I'm gonna have a sneaky link come over after. And around this time, especially my grade 10 year, I would always end up doing the devil's tango. I want to say like 2 to 3 times a week, which is kind of insane, and a lot of you guys probably don't believe that. To be fair, a lot of you guys don't believe a lot that's on this channel, but back then I was a major player. No joke, like I had no mercy for anybody. I would always, like, you know, if I pulled a girl, it was like my favorite type of video game, other than my actual favorite video game, which is Batman Arkham Knight, because I'm the biggest Batman fan ever. No joke, I actually even have a tattoo. But going on with the actual story, I remember that on this specific day, I was walking through my school hallway, and I thought I had planned out everything. Like the night before, I planned out with my sneaky link to meet up with her after school, and then my other sneaky link that I had that also went to the same school, I planned with her to also basically do the devil's tango, but do it at lunchtime at the secret staircase that was at my school. If you guys don't know, and I think I've told a story about this place before, but basically in my school, there was a secret staircase that was in our theater room that no one would go through. No joke, no teachers, no security, nothing. They would never go through that area or go through that staircase because it was like off limits to all students, and there was a sign on the door that said that there was an alarm. But let's just say in my grade 9 year, I ended up figuring out that that alarm was disabled a long time ago, even before I entered the school. So knowing this, I would always take like my sneaky link in there, and me and her would always do the devil's tango at the staircase. Now, is the staircase still available to this day? Yes. Don't ask how I know. Let's just say I wasn't the only one to use the staircase back then. But like I was saying, honestly, it became like one of my go-to spots. And I remember around lunchtime that same day, I ended up messaging my sneaky link being like, hey, so like you still down for, you know, the staircase? Oh, honestly, Baba, I really gotta focus on science class. I'm actually failing now since I missed so much. But, you know, maybe next time? Oh, yeah, no, it's totally cool. I understand. Now, the reason I said that was because, you know, I already had a chick available after school as well. So I was definitely gonna get my, you know, nut off, if you know what I mean. So I ended up basically ignoring that girl, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna hit her up as much because she's not available. I don't know. I guess in a way I was just kind of being like, I guess petty is the best way to put it. I was a major player and I was an F-boy. I didn't know any better, okay? So knowing that, I ended up messaging my other sneaky link right after, and I said, hey, like, you're still down after school, right? Like, you're available, right? Oh, Baba, honestly, like, my schedule is really busy after school, and I actually need to, like, go with my family to the doctor. Oh. Wait, seriously? Yeah, is that okay? Well, yeah, it's whatever. It's your family, but like next time, like, you know, maybe pre-tell me these things. Oh, well, I just found out like not even like 10 minutes ago. Well, like, why didn't you tell me 10 minutes ago? Well, Baba, we're in school right now. Okay, whatever. It's all good. Don't worry about it, is what I told her as well. So knowing that I had 2 girls cancel on me was super, super annoying. But this is where basically things get even worse. Because I remember after lunch, knowing that I didn't get to do the Devil's Tango at the secret staircase, I ended up actually basically hanging out with my buddy. And my buddy, for some reason, I had one of these like really weird friends that would, I guess, show me the most oddest of things. And by oddest of things, I mean like he would show me the most weirdest things ever. I think we all have that one friend that shows like the most gross things ever, like, you know, beheadings and, you know, just weird videos online on the internet that no one should really be watching. And by the way, for anyone watching this video, be careful what you watch on the internet. No joke, the amount of unnormal things on here is absolutely insane. But I remember at lunchtime I was hanging out with them, and I remember he ends up walking up to me saying, yo, Bubba, bro, dude, I haven't seen you in a minute. I gotta show you this video. Okay, sure. I ended up sitting down with my group of boys that I was hanging out with, and let's just say the video they were watching was really weird, because apparently at this time there was like a famous like Devil's Tango star that was like going viral on Twitter and a bunch of other social medias. And let's just say what she was known for was, I guess, doing the Devil's Tango with a lot of different people. In a way, I thought it was gross, but then when I actually ended up seeing the girl and my buddy, you know, showed me a video of her, obviously, if you're gonna show me videos from the Devil's Hub, I'm gonna get bricked, okay? And that's exactly what happened. I ended up getting bricked, but secretly I pretended I wasn't, because obviously I didn't want to tell all the boys that I was bricked. Like, that's kind of gay, don't you think? I don't know, that's just my opinion. But yeah, let's just say I got bricked and things got really awkward to the point where I ended up standing up and I was like, guys, honestly, I gotta go for a bit. Bubba, where are you going, man? Like, I gotta show you this other video she did. Like, she took it in like crazy. No, I'm good, man. Like, I gotta go. And I remember I thought I could go throughout the day basically trying to like ignore it and basically, you know, make it go down. And trust me, I thought of everything to make it go down. Like, I thought about my grandmother. I thought about, you know, a bunch of other things, like even like toys and plushies and video games, but nothing would make it go down. For some reason, I was like perma bricked. And this is like one of the things I realized back when I was younger. And that was in grade 10, since I had the Devil's Tango so often, it made my mind a lot worse as a person. Like I say in all these videos, don't do what I do. It doesn't make you a better person, nor does it make you actually cool. And being able to pull a bunch of girls is not aura, nor is it like special in any way. If anything, it makes you more sick in the brain, especially if you watch the Devil's Hub. It makes you worse as a man. Don't ask how I know this. I'm just speaking from experience. Anyways, after 2 classes of me being bricked, I realized that this thing wasn't going down. So I decided after school, instead of heading straight home to my locker and leaving, I was gonna do the unthinkable. And that was go into my school bathroom and handle business. Yeah, I know it's not the smartest thing, but honestly, like, you know, like, I don't know. I wasn't really thinking, okay? Like, don't judge me for what I'm about to say here, because trust me, it was embarrassing to myself. But anyways, what I ended up doing was after school, I ended up basically going straight to my locker, dropping my things off that I didn't need to take home, and I went with my phone to the bathroom. As I'm walking towards the bathroom, one of my friends ends up walking up to me, and he's like, bro, dude, I gotta show you this. And he ends up showing me a hot model on IG, and he's like telling me like how this girl was apparently like one of the hottest girls ever. And I ended up looking at her, and it definitely didn't help my situation down there. So at that moment, I'm like, okay, dude, I gotta go. Okay, you gotta go to like the bathroom? Yeah, I've been holding it in for a while. Okay, yeah, go for it, bro. So I go to the bathroom, and I go to the nearest bathroom stall. I sit down, and I pull out my phone. I pull out my phone, put my AirPods in, and I start basically beating the schmeat, if that makes any sense. YouTube, don't demonetize this, by the way, or yellow this video. I swear this is all educational, because what I'm about to say here, no one should do. Anyway, since I put my AirPods in, I started basically going on a website under the school Wi-Fi, by the way, and I basically start watching a video on the Devil's Hub and start beating my schmeat like no tomorrow. And I remember like the audio was super low on my phone just so I can make sure I can hear people that walk into the bathroom to stop, but I ended up getting too carried away, and I ended up basically going ham to the point where I didn't hear anyone walk in until I remember right after I finished beating my schmeat. I remember I come out of the bathroom stall and I take off one AirPod, and you can clearly hear like the moaning noises coming out of my AirPod. And my buddy walks in and he's like, "What are you listening to?" A new soundtrack." "What? From who?" Drake, obviously." "You're listening to Drake right now? What kind of song is that? It sounds like a girl." Nah, you're tripping." "No, dude, I recognize her moan." "Wait a minute, are you watching that star that I told you about earlier?" At that moment, I got super embarrassed, and he like ended up connecting 2 and 2 together and realized that I was in the bathroom stall watching that video. Yeah, kind of gross, but he knew exactly what happened, and I thought he wasn't gonna tell anybody. But let's just say 2 days later, I ended up going into the same bathroom stall to actually take a poop, and I ended up looking on the side of the bathroom stall, and I saw that there was a "what are you here for" list, and the list ended up saying the 3 categories of poop, pee, or beating your schmeat. And let's just say someone ended up putting my initials on there for beating the schmeat. Thank goodness there was a lot of people with the same initials, AM, or ABM, I should say, since my name's Arash Baba Moini. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, I've done a lot weirder things in weirder places, I guess. I don't really know. But honestly, if you guys enjoyed this story, then click on one of the videos on screen right now and fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.